Hello everybody. Today we are going to discuss Chapter 2, Crisis Management Landscape. Again, you don't have to read the whole chapter. Focus on page number 32 to 56 where the major content is. We won't be discussing case studies and things like that. It's a big book. I cannot, or you cannot have the time to do that. So we will restrict to the major concepts. So if you are looking at page number 32 to 56, you should be good to in this class. So we had first look at different type of crisis and 6 trends in crisis management. Terrorism and pandemics represent only a small part or percentage of organizational crisis. Other type of crisis include fires, natural disaster, industrial accidents, workplace violence, extortion attempts, product or company boycotts, and negative publicity. And these are all different type of crisis. So do not look at pandemic as a crisis alone or something you know about. There are a lot of other crises too which can happen to organizations. So this book will be dealing with every crisis, not really the pandemic management crisis alone, because that the crisis itself can come in different shapes and forms. So the 6 trends in crisis management landscape ranging from less control to be more control. Less control means you have more control over what is happening. So if you're looking at globalization, going global, you have for the risk of organizational supply chain and societal crisis, that is more in control of you because you have a chance to decide whether you want to go global or go for sourcing from outside. So you have more control. But when compared to environmental damage and resource sustainability concerns, you will have lesser control when compared to globalization decision. Human-induced mishaps is at the core of the majority of the crisis. And the next one is social media, which is definitely not under your control. Maybe somebody will be posting something against you in social media. It can go viral and can affect your business. And terrorism, of course, is less. You cannot be controlling a lot about terrorism because it's completely on the other side of the coin. So basically, this shows the amount of control that we have in the crisis landscape. So transboundary crises transcend geographical boundaries that extend far beyond the confines of a single organization. So occurrence of a natural disaster is also a function of geography sometimes, because you have heard about multiple tornadoes in certain regions or happening in regions, or your companies in the hurricane or the coast or ocean, near the ocean, there is higher chance for hurricanes and other issues. So it's a part of occurrence of natural disaster is also a function of geography. A transboundary crisis can affect significant resources over a more localized area. In Europe, transboundary crisis takes an added complexity as many of these countries have borders sharing with each other. So there will be higher crisis in that area. So a transboundary crisis means it crosses that it can be crossing geographical boundaries or it can be crossing functional boundaries. Transboundary crisis can cross functional boundaries and threaten multiple life-sustaining systems and infrastructures. Transboundary crisis can challenge the capability of government agencies within a single country. When the crisis spans multiple countries, more complex arrangements must be made in advance. So transboundary crisis can also emerge as a package of disasters, such as a combining severe weather event or a natural disaster involving different organizations also. So the transboundary crisis crosses sometimes time boundaries. What happens is that sometimes you have a crisis and the effect will be for a longer time. So transboundary crises do not have a definite beginning or ending point. They have deep-rooted in their origins and their effects linger for years. Social media has extensive impact on crisis. Many crises may have an origin in obscure event that become public via an outlet such as YouTube. And long after the crisis appears to have entered, the remnants can still be played and viewed on social media. Much of the contemporary society consists of interlinking critical infrastructures. During the years leading to 2000, a lot of work was completed to alleviate Y2K crisis. Y2K bug proved to be uneventful due to efforts to put out the worst. The cause and impact of most crises are often difficult to unravel until the affected organizations return to normal or to establish a new normal. Again, COVID-19 is a best example for different organizational crisis. It's a different organizational crisis for several reasons. Because it stems from a potential deadly and contagious virus. It has affected entire societies and industries, not just few organizations. The magnitude in terms of human and economic value is way beyond normal crisis, requiring many organizations to rely on government to survive. Almost all organizations suffered in the short term. Some performed well and even thrived due to the pandemic. Threats emanates from a variety of sources and often directed towards business interests. Since 1990s, however, terrorism has changed on three fronts. First, the number of victims per attack has increased. Second, because they are mainly targeting urban areas. Second, the religious extremists are behind most of the assaults. And finally, the targets of terrorist attacks are not confined to traditionally troubled regions like Middle East. Now it is expanded to other countries, even US. So you remember 9/11 incident also. That's one example where it went beyond the boundary and started attacking other countries. Most terrorist attacks are urban areas because they represent the state's financial, political, and cultural centers. Striking an urban area inflicts psychological and physical wound to the area. It gives maximum casualties with a single blow. Destination tourism is affected when a terrorist seeks to instill fear in the potential tourists, reducing the number of visitors to the site. From a business perspective, hotels have been an unfortunate target for terrorist attacks, particularly on the international front. While the probability of being a target of a direct hit from a terrorist attack is low when compared to other crisis events, the aftermath of an attack is more likely to impact the business continuity. These impacts include a decline in revenue due to reduced consumer demand and governmental restrictions on people's movements, goods, and money across borders. Preparing for a terrorist attack is not an easy task, either for a small business or a big corporate. Because terrorism is unlikely to disappear, this crisis management team should be prepared for the threat, understanding it, and it could intensify in the years to come, so we have to be prepared always. The internet can facilitate a crisis or even trigger one directly. It can set the stage for a crisis by permitting individuals to spread negative information about the organization rapidly over a broad geographical distance at little or no expense. Consumers can discuss their negative experience with products or services on discussion forums, Facebook, YouTube videos, blogs, and social media platforms, and it can spread like viral, as we mentioned in one of the previous slide, and can create a crisis. Since 1994, the Institute of Crisis Management, ICM, has been tracking the types of crises that strike organizations. ICM has tracked over 791,000 negative news stories in 2018 annual report and found 25 of the all reported cases were 25% of all reported crises were directly attributable to the mismanagement, followed by discrimination, sexual harassment, and labor disputes. So the human-induced crisis stems from workplace violence, human error, normal accident theory, and sloppy management. Griffin and Lopez coined the term the bad behavior to refer to actions that harm the organization and its members. They further classified it into 4 categories, including deviance, aggression, antisocial behavior, and violence. Workplace deviance include behavior that violates the accepted norms of the organization. Organizational deviance is those actions against the organization, including leaving early, wasting resources, stealing, and sabotaging equipment. Interpersonal deviance is directed towards individuals in the workplace, including gossiping, verbal abuse, and sexual harassment. Workplace aggression is non-physical, threatening, and assertive behavior directed towards a person or an object. Antisocial behavior is a set of actions that can produce physical, economical, psychological, and emotional harm. This behavior occurs when a employee is not sociable and disrupts organizational norms. Workplace violence exists when behaviors become physical. One of the behaviors described by Griffin and Lopez, workplace violence generates most attention in the crisis management field. So, in long story short, we have seen the landscape in this chapter. Thank you very much. Again, focus on those page numbers mentioned in the beginning, and do watch the video, go through the PowerPoint presentations and the notes I prepared. That will help you very much with the examination. Thank you very much.